Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today we're going to be recapping episode 90 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. This was a fun one, so let's get into it. We start with the party splitting up, going on two different missions for the Volition to prove that they are trustworthy and allies. There's Team Demolitions, which has FCG, Fern, and Ashton going into the tunnels of Ruidus to cause a distraction with Ira, which is very dangerous. And there's Team Rescue Evaroa, which has Laudna, Imogen, Chetney, and Orem going to the Central Spire to try to find any information on the missing informant. The two teams split up, and we're going to start with Team Demolition. Cloaked under a seeming spell casted by Ira, Fern, Ashton, and FCG appeared like regular races of Ruidus. Fern looks like a Bormodo, Mister looks like a Saita, FCG looks like a Mycete, and Ashton looks like a Quadika. I'm still going to say that wrong. It's a Sasquatch looking people. I'm going to say Quadika and just leave it at that. Ira tells them to just follow him and to ignore anything that seems too strange. FCG tells him to not leave them for dead like he did with the last team. He says he didn't leave them for dead, but they died and then he just left after. They continue walking and see shops and all sorts of crafting huts as they move through the city. It seems a little bit like Exandria in some ways, but a little different and twisted. A beggar comes up to them and asks Fern, who looks like a Bormodo at this point, for any jewels or anything like that. Ira gets pissed at him and tells him to leave, and tells Fern to play the part of his guard and to ignore the people like this. She does sneak a hairpin into the hands of the beggar, which would technically be an alien object for them, and then leaves with Ira. As they walk behind Ira, who looks like a mystic Ryloran, the people give them a wide berth. FCG asks what exactly they'll be blowing up, and Ira says they're going to be looking for a weight-bearing pillar that will cause the most damage, or a device that will slow down their digging process. The party see a bunch of homes and buildings that are clearly based off the dream that they see of Exandria, and their interpretations of that, so they look a little off than what they would normally see at home. At this point, they are near the bottom part of the pillar, and it's absolutely massive. Down below, they see what looks to be some sort of beast pits collection. There are Avedons and Slithers being trained, and they also see a massive mantis-like creature covered with armor, with two Rylorans on top of it. Fern makes a perception check and rolls an 18. She sees the skulls of this mantis as like the skull of the creature on the jagged edge as they were walking into the glass shop, and was warned about them. They are Vidalch. She also sees a resting gloom glut inside this beast pit, the Mount of Lord Zathuda. Ira then takes them right to the base of the pillar. They can see four structures here and a freshly dug tunnel. Ira tells them that this is the entrance to the target that they're going after, and tells the party to stay silent and, if need be ready to deal with any troubling enemies. Meanwhile, we go to Team Rescue. Team Rescue knows the rough direction of the central pillar, but they don't have a guide to make their way through the city, so they have to make their own path. They are invisible, and they will be for the next hour. Imogen, Laudna, and Orem can see each other, but Chetney can't see them because of his stubbornness to get something placed on his forehead. Chetney is, however, leading the way. He makes an investigation check of 16 to sort of lead them and find a clean path. He thinks he found a quick path to the pillar. They also make stealth rolls. Natural 20 from Chetney and Orem. Chetney's equals 30. A 13 from Imogen and an 8 from Laudna. The two crits saved their asses. They move through the alleyways and over top of buildings. They have a few close calls as they move through the city, but are never caught. As they go through the party also see people are packing up and getting ready to leave. It seems like people are in the early stages of leaving the city. They also watch a bunch of Mycete carry a lot of fungus around and put them in large collections in different places. Soldiers also give the Mycete commands every once in a while. The far out parts of the city seem like the poorer parts, and as they move in, the houses seem to get bigger and the people there have more things within them. Laudna looks at the scryball and sees that Odahan is in the higher portion of the central pillar, above where they are going. Imogen tries to find the building her mother was in, but is too overwhelmed by the new area to find it. Chetney looks to the sky to see if there's any flying patrols. He rolls an 18 on his perception check. He doesn't see any patrols, but does see some creatures in the cracks up above, but he can't quite tell if they're like patrolling or watching. They just look like they're chilling. They eventually go from small buildings to much larger ones, like I mentioned before, and as they get closer to the pillar, the population goes from more varied to mostly Ryloran. Lana wonders how the Rylorans will do in Exandria if they think so highly of themselves now, to the point where they're the only ones closer to the pillar. Imogen points out that they are a very powerful race. Imogen looks around to see if any of the Rylorans seem to be picking up their presence. She rolls an 8 on her insight check and can't quite tell if they're being noticed or not by their mind powers. Orem says if the Rylorans had good intentions for Exandria, they'd communicate with the people there and not just appear one day. They move for another 15 minutes before they come across the beast pits that the other team saw as well. They can now also see the size of the central pillar before them. Orem sees a bunch of Ryloran mystics flying around it. The closest one to them is about 600 feet up, which is wild. Looking at the pillar, Orem thinks it might go up a quarter mile, which, as a Canadian, I have no idea how far a quarter mile is. So, someone in the comments let me know. They see the Hall of Higher Learning, the part of the central pillar that they are heading towards, is off to the side of it. It looks like a wasp nest has been placed next to the side of a glass pillar. Each section of that building has its own personality to it as it twists and looks a little bit different. They see the main entrance to it, and it's guarded by 7 Rylorans. Orem sees that there are other ways in, but they would be a difficult climb up, as there are a bunch of balconies further up on the Hall of Higher Learning. They could either climb or they could fly up to them. Lautna can cast Spider Climb, but she'd lose her invisibility doing so. Imogen could recast invisibility on her if need be. Chet looks at the Rylorans in front of the main door. There are 2 Juggernauts and 5 other Rylorans holding glass weapons. The group is worried about the glowing weapon property, but they notice that the weapons are already glowing, so they are in the presence of more Ruidusborn. They could fight, but they think it's better to stay sneaky. Lautna wants to wait for the doors to open, but Imogen thinks that could take too long and wants to try to climb up the side instead. They could use the immovable rod and a rope to get up. Orem gets a better look at the pillar and sees there's a good bit of distance between the central pillar and any other building outside of the fortified structures by its base. They continue to move closer to the Hall of Higher Learning and see a balcony about 60 feet up. It's been about 30 minutes since they've gotten their invisibility, so they have about half an hour left, maybe a bit less. As they get closer to the pillar, they see that the pillar has some texture to it. It seems to have little branches coming off it. Little, I say little, but they're like 100 feet long each, but it looks small compared to the rest of it, which could make it easier to climb the central pillar. Imogen wonders if the glass is a part of Predathos' brain. They continue toward the balcony, and we switch back to the other team. Ira moves and guides them through the tunnels. Soldiers don't really stop them with the presence of a Ryloran mystic guiding this group. As they continue, the tunnel starts to smooth out a bit. They see carts of glass being moved in and out of the tunnels. As they move deeper, the number of miners grows. They can hear chatter between them, and they see resting areas and a barracks. They also see oars being set off to the side. There's about 3 dozen Ryloran soldiers staying on watch in here. FCG asks how are they going to get out of here once they get in, and Fern hasn't really thought about it, and Ashton thinks that they are way too ahead of themselves here. Fern asks Ira how much further they're going to be going in. Ira isn't sure. They'll know when they get to where they have to blow shit up. Ira then turns and sees 2 Rylorans looking at him. He nods and they wave at him. Ira says, "Oh boy, follow me," and he starts heading towards the barracks down here with the 2 Rylorans. The party follows. They step into a half circle built into the wall. As they step in, they see a bunch of Vanguard soldiers in here, and most of the soldiers are standing at attention. Ira steps in and nods. The others follow in and see another mystic and a dark armored figure at the table. It's Lord Zathuda. Great. He seems very uncomfortable here. He's talking to another figure on the other end of the table that he's sitting at. The figure has 2 Avedons next to him, and the party sees a massive Ryloran Hulk, or Juggernaut. He's wearing an incredibly ornate armor with a bunch of blades all over it. This guy seems to be about 10 feet tall, making Zathuda look small. Zathuda and this Hulk are staring at each other. Out loud, Zathuda says that he hates this conversation in his head. The Hulk slams the desk, and the Abaddons get up and begin to leave the room, one of them consistently looking at Zethutha. Zethutha says, "What thy rule might be, Sunder King, the Vanguard's might will see it through." The Sunder King then gets up and leaves the room. He has to duck as he leaves the space. It's not quite big enough for him. The party sees a massive mace on his side as he leaves, and the Abaddons go back to his side. One of them, however, starts looking at the party and takes a bit of interest in them. The Sunder King and the other Abaddon begin to leave while the other stays back and moves towards the party. FCG throws chocolate at it, but it merely spits on it and then moves towards the party yet again. At this point, the soldiers start to circle down here, as this isn't the first time one of the Sunder King's creatures has done this to people. Fern casts Speak with Animals on herself. She tries to hide her hand movements with some sleight of hand, and she rolls a 13. It seems no one saw it. Fern tells it to go after its owner. She needs to make a persuasion check or an animal handling check. She rolls a 13. She asks if he's hungry. He says he smells new meat and wants to try it. Fern says she smells it too, and it's the other way from them, but it doesn't listen. FCG then casts Speak with Animals on themselves, and the Abaddon is right up on Fern at this point. FCG then casts Command on it. They command it to scram. It fails the wisdom save, and then it turns and runs off for about 6 seconds until the spell ends, and then it turns its attention back. Suddenly, a glass-shattering yell comes out of nowhere, and the Abaddon turns and runs back to the Sunder King. A soldier is looking at FCG, who looks like a Mycete that just cast a spell, which is a little odd. Ira then sort of blocks that soldier's vision, and then waves his hands at the soldier, and the soldier turns and leaves. Zethutha comes out of this small little nook in the wall and tells everyone to get back to work or he'll cut their heads off. The demolition continue down the tunnel, and we go back to the other team. They have made their way down to the base of the Hall of Higher Learning, hiding in one of the cracks nearby. Above them are a few balconies. Oren backs up away from the pillar to get a better look at it, and look above. He rolls an 18 on his perception check, which is kind of low for him. He sees 4 balconies above, 2 are currently occupied, and it's hard to tell if they are students, guards, or employees. The one on the furthest right is empty. It's about 90 feet up from where they are. They give Laudna all the rope they have, which is about 100 feet worth, so there's about 10 feet extra. Laudna will be going up using her spider climb, and Imogen will turn them both invisible again once she casts it. Orm tells them when it's safe to go, and they both cast their new spells, and now Laudna can climb up. They're trying to keep the rope hidden a little bit from the people in the balconies and from guards going by. Laudna makes a dex save. She rolls a 5 with advantage, which is terrible. As Laudna is climbing, she tries to tie the rope up in little nooks and crannies as she's going in an attempt to keep it hidden, but it comes undone as soon as she reaches the balcony. She then goes and tries it again. This time she rolls an 18. She reaches the balcony and uses the immovable rod to lock the rope in place. However, half of the rope would be visible to guards if they were to come by and see it. Imogen starts to climb up. Athletics check. She is Adam Westing it. The Batman reference. She rolls a 16. She climbs up without any issue. She is a little tired, however. The doors next to them on the balcony are closed. Orm then climbs up and he rolls an 18. He gets up without any issue. Orm looks around for any guards. He sees a patrol coming close. They're about 100 feet from Chetney. He telepathically warns Chetney, because they still have telepathic bond up. Chetney starts to climb up and gathers the rope as he does so. As he gathers the rope, it disappears back into his hand as he is now holding it. He gets up to the top of the balcony with the rest of them, and the guards look around and don't see anything and leave. The party looks at the door that they're next to. Chetney looks to see if it's trapped. With a 24, he sees that it's not, but it is locked. He tries to pick the lock and he rolls a 27, so he has no issues with that, and the door swings open. It looks like a study room, and there's a bit of a college vibe to it. It's currently empty. Chetney sniffs around, perception check of 17. He doesn't smell anyone in the room, but there's a unique smell coming from the bag they got from the Volition before leaving the safe house. They open it, and a Saita hops out of it. It's mad about how long it took. It's Ivaroa's Saita. The Saita's name is Gona. Imogen asks what the last time they saw Ivaroa was. Gona says when they took her down below the bay, the engineering bay, where she was working. Gona can sense Ivaroa and knows the way around this place a little bit. They pick up Gona, and she turns invisible just like them because they are holding her. Gona will guide them through the halls to the engineering bay. Orm and Chetney only have about 5 to 10 minutes left of their invisibility. They need to move quick so they can recast it safely. They leave that room, and Gona knows where they are. She whispers in Imogen's ear that she will guide her to the engineering bay. We then go back to the other team. This team is pushing past most of the mining in the tunnels. They come to a wall that is made of thick stone. It seems to be some sort of blast boundary. And there is a garage-like door built into it, and it seems to be closed or sealed. Ashton tells Fern to help look at the door, as they are, not the greatest with their perception. Fern doesn't see any way to open it from this side, and she sees that it is in fact sealed shut. They ask Ira what to do now. Ira says that they got this wall up faster than he expected. He thinks whatever they're using to dig these tunnels is likely on the other side of this door. He can take one other person onto the other side with him. Ashton could transform and sort of shift through it, the rock. Ira looks at the guards and tells them to go get materials, and the guards leave. Ira says it can only be opened from the other side. They have a bit of time now before those guards come back. FCG can use pass wall again using the staff. The door is made of stone, so after they use pass wall on it, they can use stone shape to create thin layers of rock to make it look like there's no hole on either side of the tunnel. They decided that's a good idea. FCG casts pass wall on the door with the staff, and a tunnel appears in the door. It seems to be about 15 feet thick, this door, but they're able to move through it no problem because of the tunnel that was created. FCG realizes they can close the tunnel without needing to use stone shape. It's part of pass wall. They go through the tunnel, and it's extremely dark on the other side of it. Ira then uses an illusionary spell to make it look like the tunnel isn't even there. FCG looks for a way to open the door, and they see a chain pulley system and a lever, and they assume that's how they do it. It is super dark on the side, however, and Ira summons a blue will-o-wisp that makes some light for them so they can see a little bit. They see a few things on the other side of this tunnel now. The tunnel here doesn't have any braces on the walls, meaning it's freshly dug. They can hear a grinding sound a bit away from them, and there's glass all over the walls reflecting the light that Ira made. It seems to be the same glass the weapons are made of. They move towards the grinding sound, and at this point more and more glass becomes visible. It seems like they're digging straight into the central pillar. They see the source of the grinding. They see a few Rylorans nearby, and they hear the sound of metal grinding against glass. There is a massive device on rollers that's about 8 feet wide, with a Ryloran Hulk or Juggernaut pushing it forward. There are 2 other Rylorans looking over the device, and another one with armor sort of standing off to the side being a guard. Fern asks Ira what the play is. He says they could set the bombs down here, or they can move closer. The party think it's better to move closer, and Ira agrees to make sure to get everything. Fern suggests taking out the enemy to make sure that everything goes off in the explosion. Ash and FCG think that they might be able to alert others if they start fighting. FCG asks how big the bomb is, and Ira pulls it out. It's a cylinder with metal bands around it with runes on them. They look to be about 30 pounds each, and there are 6 of them. FCG asks Ira what his plan would have been if they weren't there. He says that he would make them turn around as he sets the bombs, and then leave. It worked well last time. They like this idea of magically making them all sort of turn away. Ashton will stay back in case one of them tries to run. Ira, Fern, and FCG will walk towards the device. As they do, the Rylorans see them and they stop the grinding. At this point, we then switch to the other team. The hallway they stepped into is empty. They choose to recast invisibility, and Chetney does it on himself, so that way, at this point, they're just newly cast, freshly invisible. Before Chetney turns invisible, however, he turns into a werewolf, causing Gona to scream a little bit of terror. And at this point, they hear footsteps coming towards the door. Chetney uses his monocle to cast see invisibility. They then put themselves up against the wall back in the room and close the door behind them, just because someone's coming close. The door opens up, and it's a Quadika. He leans in, and he says hello, but the party stay quiet, and he leaves. They wait a minute, and they leave the room again, and then they go right like Gona said. Group stealth checks. Laudna with a 14, Imogen with a 17, Orm with a 20, and Chetney with a 24. They move down the hall and head down some stairs. There's now 3 paths they can take. They see some robed figures on some of them and some soldiers on others. Gona says to go left. They head down that path. This path leads to another split, and there's stairs going down. They go down the stairs, like Gona says. They get to the bottom and see 2 Ryloran Hulks blocking the path. The Hulks take up the whole hallway because they're fucking massive. Chetney says that he can deal with them and takes out 2 of the toys that he's made in the past. He throws them both on the floor, and they slide under the Ryloran Hulks. They need to beat a wisdom save of 15. They roll a 1 and a 9, so they both fail. They both pick up the toy and start laughing and playing with them. This opens up a bit of a path for them to squeak through. They go down the rest of the hall, and they see a bunch of doors. Gona says that they should move past them and not worry about them. These rooms seem to be sort of dormitories. They follow the path for a good while. They then turn left and see a bit of the glass from the central spire breaking through the rest of the stone wall around them. It seems to be like sort of leaning its way into the halls of higher learning. As they move past it, Chetney walks up to it and tries to use grim psychometry on the glass. He rolls a history check of a 14. He concentrates and gets flashes of red and stone crushing each other, the feeling of anger, hunger, and the feeling of being alone. That's all he gets from it. No deeper history comes from this roll, unfortunately. They continue on the path. They come to a set of stairs, one going straight down and the other going down to the left. Gona says to go left. At this point, Laudna looks at the scribe ball again, and Odahan hasn't really moved. She's still above them. They get down to the bottom of the stairs, and they can smell the scent of chemicals in the air. They come to a chamber. Within it is 2 different Rylorans at 2 different tables. It looks like a laboratory in here. This room in particular looks to be about 20 by 30 feet. There's an open archway that leads to another room that has more glass in it, and then that leads to another chamber beyond that. Gona says that this is the bay. Laudna asks if there's a way down from here to somewhere else, and Gona isn't sure. They don't really know where Ibarora has been taken from here. Laudna thinks they should check the other staircase. Chetney looks for any glasses they saw at the Malleus Key, more of the Aeorian devices. He does, in fact, see another Aeorian device, much like the one they found in the box, in the other room. They all move up to the next archway. As they move, they can see jars on their walls with what look to be some sort of organisms inside of it, maybe fetus-like. They have labels on them that they can't really read, with the exception of Laudna. She can read them thanks to the eyes of the Runekeeper. She sees they are experimental failures. They think this is how they make most of their bioengineering tech. Laudna looks to see if they are Ryloran. She rolls a nature check of 19. They do see something that looks like a Ryloran, also Bormodo and Abaddon. They step into the next room, and there's a glass tube with green water inside that has shapes floating around inside of it. It's like a bathtub tank. That's how big this thing is. On the other side of the room is a Bormodo who is gathering materials at a table. They would then walk across the room up to the glass tube and begins inspecting it. Chetney uses his Hunter's Bane here, and there are no pings of Fae, undead, or anything like that. The party move to the next chamber. It's the largest room by far, with a ton of tables in it and numerous experiments going on in here. There are more tubes in here, and they have cages around them. Inside is a Ryloran, and another is a smaller creature that seems a little bit off. There's a body on a table and a Ryloran doing an autopsy. The body on a table is a Judicator body, with its mask removed. There's 2 other Rylorans watching the autopsy. One is a Shrike, and the other is a Thought Eater, or a Mystic. On the left side is a glass tube, much like the other rooms, and there's also a globe off to the side. It looks to be like a globe of Rudis, and it's cut in 2. They see the caverns that are sort of built into this structure, and the center has teeth to it, and there are spires that come out from it. This core takes up about 30 to 40% of the globe, which is fucking wild. In the glass tube, there is a shape of a Bormodo, and Gona can sense that it's Ibarora. They need to get her out of there. We then switch back to the other team. As they get closer to the digging team that is down here, FCG binds with Ira and Fern. One Rylauren steps up, it seems to be the heavily armored one, and meets with Ira. Ira waves his hands, and Matt makes Taliesin, Ashley, and Sam roll the saving throws for the enemy. All of them fail except for one. The two engineers turn and nod to Ira, and the guard who met with him nods as well. The three of them all begin to leave and walk up the tunnel. The Juggernaut is confused by all of this and approaches Ira. He waves his hands again, and Sam rolls a natural 20 on his saving throw. The Juggernaut beats the Dominate spell. Ferdinand tries to charm it. Sam rolls a 14. Her DC is 18. As the Juggernaut is about to punch Ira, it turns to Fern, but it stops for a second and then keeps going for its punch. Fern tries to get in the way with a dex check of 19. She puts herself in the way of the Juggernaut, who then stops his punch. It looks down at her and says that he doesn't think that it is what it's supposed to be. Fern tries to convince him that they are meant to be there and he needs to leave. Persuasion check of 22. The Juggernaut drops his fist, nods, and starts to leave. They all walk past Ashen as he's waiting for them up top. He steps off to the side and bows his head a bit. He needs to make a deception check. He rolls a 3. Charisma is his worst stat. Ira is rapidly pulling out the bombs and is dancing around all excitedly. They start planting the bombs. The Juggernaut up top asks Ashen who he's with, and Ashen says them and points down the tunnel. The Juggernaut grabs him by the neck and lifts him off the ground. Ashen mentally asks for help. Fern begins to run up to go help him. Ira asks how long they should set the bombs for. FCG says 1 minute, and Ira instantly sets 5 of them and they start glowing. They are currently active. FCG says not to activate them quite yet, and Ira says sorry, he misunderstood. FCG then casts silence on the area, and they start running, because 5 of the 6 have been set. FCG warns them of the time limit. Fern, Ira, and FCG see Ashen as being grabbed currently, and Ira casts Polymorph on the Juggernaut, and he fails the save and is transformed into a small creature, of which I missed which one he transformed him into, but it's not important. Ira tells the other Rylauren to check on the machine back down the tunnel. Ashen rages. Ira opens up the door, the blast door, and his arms open up and begins to grab everybody. Ashen got a rage that improves his speed, so he actually picks up FCG and begins running faster with them. Ira has Fern in his hands, and they're bolting past a ton of people at extreme speeds. At this point, they hear a massive rumble go off. A flash of white comes up the tunnel behind them, and Ira grabs Fern and they dimension door to the surface, or at least above the tunnels in here. They're still in the underground city. The ground then bubbles up beneath the two of them, and the ground begins to crack open. Fern is about to fall into one of the cracks when Ira makes a wall of force, and she's able to sort of grab onto it and step onto it, and she's now a little bit safe. Meanwhile, Ash and FCG see the white flash of fire behind them, and they see people disintegrate as they run past it, which is fucking wild. Ashen takes his elemental form and melds into the wall. However, FCG can't go into the wall with them, so he is sort of being dragged along the outside of it. They reach the barracks at this point. FCG needs to do something or they'll be hit by the white fire. FCG tries to use Divine Intervention. They need to roll a 12 or below. They roll a 52. So they had a plus 40 to their roll, which is nice. Ashton tries to open the black hole super quick to shove FCG inside of it to keep them safe. Dex save, Ashton rolls a 20. As the flames reach them, Ashton opens up the black hole and throws them both inside of it. They are hit by it and the force of the explosion. Ashton makes a strength check to see if he can hold onto the hole still and try to keep them both safe. He rolls a 16 and is able to keep a hold of the hole. Some of the stuff does, however, fly out of it. They both take half the damage from the blast, and Matt Mercer rolls a million fucking dice. The damage they take is 79, which was already halved. They took like 150 fucking 2 damage or something like that. I don't quick math. They're thrown out of the tunnel as it looks like they just hit hyperspace. And then they both hit the ground and skip across it like a stone skipping across water. They both take 25 more damage. Ashton halves that because it's bludgeoning damage. FCG has 2 hit points left. The sound is deafening. Fern sees the ground move and shift a bit after the repeated explosions go off, but she is safe from the wall of force, and Ira is gone. She asks if they are still alive. They say they are. They hear another screech and it is Gloom Glut who is now awake and flying around. We then switch to the other team. They are looking at Ivaroa. They see another archway that has a staircase going up. They think about what they need to do, and the room then quakes. They hear a boom that echoes throughout the city, and the engineers all take cover. The tube with Ivaroa is now cracked. Chenny then runs up to the stairs and yells, trying to convince the people down below to evacuate. Most of the engineers begin to leave, but the Shrike and the Mystic stay behind. Matt brings out a map to give the party a bit of a visual. The Mystic seems to not want to leave the stuff in this room unguarded. Lana uses her unsettling presence to make it leave, and it now has disadvantage on its next saving throw. Orem then walks behind the Mystic with a stealth check of 20. He is in the wait if they need to kill the Mystic. The Shrike then moves into the same room that the Mystic is in. Chetney moves into the room behind them as well. Imogen is getting ready to cut down the Mystic with Orem. Chetney gets ready to deal with the Shrike just in case. Imogen says now. Orem and her both attack the Mystic. Once they attack, they both lose their invisibility. Imogen casts Psychic Lance at 6th level on the fucker. The Mystic fails the save and is incapacitated and takes 29 damage. The Mystic falls to its knees. Orem then casts Hex on it, and they begin to attack using a tripping attack. Hitting for 21 damage, the Mystic then trips. He misses his second attack, and then Orem hits his third attack, dealing 18 more damage. He then action surges, critting, and then that crit luckily kills the Mystic. Orem then runs over to the Shrike and hits the Shrike with his next attack, dealing 16 damage, also tripping it. He then misses his last attack. The Shrike then makes his blade spins in the air around them. Lana is up and they cast Bane, but unfortunately the Shrike saves on the Bane. Chetney then runs up and uses his Blood Curse of Binding on the Shrike. It fails its save and its speed is now reduced to 0 and it can't take reactions. Chetney pulls out the glass scythe and swings, hitting both attacks for 19 and 17 damage respectively. It is time to roll initiative. The Shrike got a 21, Imogen got a 21, Chetney got a 21, and Orem got a 21. And then Lana is last. Sorry, Orem didn't get a 21, he got 19. But it still goes Orem, then Lana. The Shrike is up. It moves its blade over to one of the glass tubes, and they all hit the tube, slashing it open. The green liquid spills out, and a large shape lands on the ground. It unfurls itself, and it is an adolescent Vidalch. Imogen is up. She cast Sapnatic Static, I think is what it was called, placing it on both the Shrike and the Vidalch. They both fail, taking 25 damage each, and for the next minute they have to roll a d6 and subtract that number from any attacks or saving throws they make. Chetney is up. He casts a Blood Curse of Bloating on the Vidalch. Sorry, Bloated Agony, not bloating, on the Vidalch. Chetney runs up on the Vidalch and crits on the attack, dealing 25 damage. He rolls to make sure the scythe doesn't break, and it doesn't. He then crits on a second attack because these weapons have increased crit chances, dealing 25 more damage. He rolls to make sure his weapon doesn't break. However, he rolls a 4, and the scythe shatters. It was free, so I feel like that was a good show. Oh, wait, no, it wasn't free. Either way, 2 crits in a row is wild, so they should buy more of these things. He then backs away from it, but he is still within 10 feet of its range, and it has extended reach. Orem is up and jumps on the Shrike and begins to slash at its head. He hits for 10 damage. Chetney forgot to add sneak attack to both of his attacks on the Shrike and the Vidalch, so you add 4 to the Shrike and 9 damage to the Vidalch. Orem hits 2 more times, killing the Shrike, which is nice. The 3 blades of the Shrike was controlling now fall to the ground. Orem then backs up a little bit. Laudna is up. She spider climbs onto the ceiling and gets a little bit closer to the Vidalch, and she casts Blight on it. It fails and takes 25 more damage. 25 is their magic number for the fighting, I swear. She then quicken spells and casts Eldritch Blast, which missed the first one but hits the second one for 6 damage, and then it hits the third one for 10 damage, so 16 damage total. The Vidalch is up, it stands, and parts of its armor begin to fall off. and his party seemed to be, or parts of it seemed to be melting away. It doesn't look like it was fully done cooking. It jumps over Chetney, landing in between everybody, and then makes 5 fucking attacks, hitting Chetney for 22 damage, hitting Orm for 9 damage. It then misses Imogen. It swings again for her, but misses again. It then swings for Orm again as well, hitting for 19 more damage. Then it sprays acid on Orm and Imogen, and they both take 8 damage, because they both saved, so that was halved. At the end of its turn, more parts of its body begin to fall off. It loses 1 attack, it loses some speed, and it loses some AC. Imogen is up. Chetney looks over at Ivaroa and sees Gona is, like, punching at the glass, trying to break it, but is having 0 effect on it. Imogen casts Lightning Bolt on the Vidalch. As Imogen casts the spell, all the glass in the room glows up with it. The Vidalch fails the save, and it takes 24 damage. She just won off 25. Imogen then quicken spells and casts Shock and Grasp. She hits, dealing 21 more damage. Chetney is up. He activates his Crimson Right in the best way possible by ripping his ears off and flaming ears replace them. He then swings with his claws, hitting, dealing 16 and 18 damage, killing the Vidalch. Orm then slashes open the tube with Ivaroa in it. She's barely awake. Lana uses Wither and Bloom to heal her for 11 hit points. She wakes up fully at this point. Imogen says they're getting her out of there. They help her stand. Lana grabs some of the fetus jars. That's nasty. Chet tries to take the Aeorian device, and he successfully is able to put it in the bag of holding. Orm looks at the dead Judicator's face. The eyes are gone, and the face is like a mass burn that is perfectly in the shape of a mask. Imogen casts invisibility on everybody again. Imogen asks Fern how things are doing. Fern asks if Ashton and FCG are okay, and they say yes, and FCG heals them. Fern is out of the tunnel above the underground city. Ashton and FCG are both stunned and seeing stars. After a second, they can see the wreckage nearby, and they see the central pillar. FCG and Ashton start moving away from the pillar. Fern can see Ashton and FCG, and she starts running towards them. She rolls a d20 and rolls a 16, and she finds them with ease. Ashton hugs her, and at this point, Fern is glowing red. Imogen is also glowing red. They both hear a high-pitched scream. It only lasts for a second, and then it's gone, and the voice was female. Imogen says to start making their way back to the hideout. FCG looks around to see if anything wasn't destroyed. Fern grabs onto Ashton's hand and says don't let her float away, because of the last time they've started turning red, they started floating. FCG looks around and finds the path that they took to get here, and they start following it back. There's another explosion at a domed building, and FCG, Fern, and Ashton can see a lavender-haired woman flying out of it. Lana looks at the scriball and sees that Odahan is moving. The Everroa group start making their way through the halls again. Acrobatics check to avoid anybody. Chetney with a 14, Orm with a 20, Lana with a 17, and Imogen with a 18. They slip past the guards without any issue. Everroa goes to point them down a path, but is blocked by a ton of soldiers. They turn down another path. They see some people getting ready, or some of them are hiding. They watch and stop as 2 Hulks run past them, probably the same 2 they snuck by before. They're trying to find a balcony. They find a door that's closed, and they try to open it, but someone is holding it closed on the other side. Chetney rips the door off its hinges, and they see a Vanguard elf who is trying to hide. There's a balcony in this room. It's about 70 to 100 feet down to the floor. As they reach the balcony, they can see the explosion where Liliana was before, much like what Fern and the other team saw. Imogen now knows the source of the scream that they heard before. They tie a rope down and slip down it. They leave the rope behind, and guards see it. The party start moving away from the rope through the city, and guards sort of surround the rope, but they don't see anything. They see Liliana still in the air. Fern and Imogen both hear in their heads, "Did she know?" And that's where the episode ends. And there you have it, episode 90 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. We are 10 away from 100, which is fucking wild to me. So that'll be very fun when we finally get there. Also, this was a fantastic episode. This episode was really, really sick. I enjoyed the combat. I enjoyed like the tenseness of the team being split up and like the worry of if they get caught up with something, running into incredibly powerful allies like the Sunder King and Sora Lord Zathuda, which was fucking wild to have like two very powerful people being like so close. Also, Odahan being really close is really tense and really cool. And then the explosion. The explosion, it was like a fucking nuke going off. The visual in my head of like the ground bubbling up from this explosion that was in like, you know, in the mines. This explosion was so big, I feel like they could have planted that anywhere and it wouldn't have mattered. And then obviously the fight with them inside like the Hall of Higher Learning was really cool, with us seeing what the Vidalch looks like and what it can do. I am terrified for whenever they encounter like a full grown Vidalch, because that thing was nasty before. So imagine one that isn't melting away because it wasn't fully cooked. Also, the explosion with Liliana is interesting, and I think the implication there is that the Volition killed all of the children, or the Rylorans, or the Rudisborn that she was protecting because of the explosion in there, and now she thinks that Imogen is to blame, which she kinda isn't. Like she warned her about it and told her to leave and to run, and she didn't really heed the warning. So yeah, Imogen could have gone, and that is going to weigh on her, that she could have gone and maybe changed something, but that would have ruined their relationship with the Volition. So realistically, it was better for this to happen than for them to go in and, you know, lose shit. Because the two missions went off perfectly, in my opinion. They expertly pulled this off. Splitting the party was well done. Matt is a brilliant DM to be able to go back and forth so seamlessly and have like the timeline of everything sort of fit super well. I feel bad for those people who like were really looking forward to the idea of a table split and having guests show up, but honestly, this was perfect in my opinion. This was really well done, very entertaining from beginning to end, and very excited to see all of the results that this sort of episode brings. So yeah, that's episode 90. I will see you guys on Tuesday for whatever video I make next. Peace.